Morning, Ian.
Morning, Graham. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well.
Yeah.
Baby slept pretty well last night. Little grunty, but
Few hours
overall
of sleep, or how's she
more
doing?
than I'm getting more sleep than I expect,
Yeah.
which is nice. I feel like parents like to threaten new parents with how little sleep they're going to get,
Yeah.
and I think I prepared for much worse mentally than what's happening. So it's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. You're like 6 weeks in or so.
Yeah, 6 weeks today.
Yeah. So you've gone through the darkness. I think the first few weeks can be the adjustment and figuring out what the baby's routines are and all that. I don't know, but I,
Yeah.
I agree. Like it's been survivable. I think for moms it's much harder just because they're up feeding
Yes, I think it's much harder.
and I tended to just try and sleep through as much of that as possible because I can't do anything for you. But during the day, maybe I can take some of the load off and make it easier. And
Yeah, it's like I can change diapers.
yeah,
If there's milk available, I can feed her. But
yeah.
other than that, I can't pump every 2 hours to
No, it's pretty
make a
tough.
supply.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad it's going okay and excited to meet her. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, it's. I mean, on top of that, we were talking a little bit about tracking our health and using ourselves as experiments for that. And I
yeah,
was talking with you previously about I've got type 1.5 diabetes, which is like later onset
yeah,
stage where my body's now starting to kill my insulin producing cells, but I think pretty slowly. So I had a continuous glucose monitor, just testing how much things like carbohydrates
yeah,
and exercise affect your blood sugar. It's like incredible. I know
yeah.
you
Well, I've
finally
been
got
curious
one.
for a while too, and lots of YouTube and podcasts. You see people talking about a continuous glucose monitor being a really interesting way to track and just learn a little bit about yourself, even if you're not diagnosed with diabetes. So, and I was seeing my doctor earlier this week, and I got one. And
Yeah.
so my experiment is continuing now with having come off caffeine largely, and I am drinking decaf coffee today. But
Well,
now
drinking
trying to feel for
sugar free Red Bull, maybe not as good.
sure. There you go. I'm on the sugar still. You're on the caffeine. Meet you in the middle.
Yeah.
But it's been fascinating just starting to learn how and see how your body responds, and sometimes how quickly in both directions. Even working out this morning, just watching my blood sugar kind of race up because of the intensity of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found it fascinating, after having a big meal or something, blood sugar will spike. And then, if you do a 3 minute wall sit and get your legs firing to sort of absorb all that glucose, your blood sugar can drop like 2 points basically, like very quickly, which
Yeah,
is pretty interesting to see. And I think to your point, it's like diabetes or not, I
yeah,
think, you know, inflammation caused by high blood sugar is something so important to get under control for anybody. And
yeah.
it's, I think anybody that gets a continuous glucose monitor, CGM, would be surprised at just, maybe how out of range they are or not, hopefully.
And just the variability of it all.
Yeah.
I've liked it for sleep and stuff like that. So the caffeine thing was triggered by my interest in understanding my sleep patterns better, and I've got a few variables like an Aura ring. But stacking the sleep information with the glucose information overnight has been super interesting because you can see how your HRV responds. Your meal timings and the rest. I can see the deep versus REM sleeps, and so just like starting to play with that now, 3 or 4 layers of overnight information is quite interesting.
Yeah. I've noticed the HRV thing for sure. Like if I
Yeah,
eat dinner at 8 o'clock,
that
my
gets
HRV is low for the first half of the night. And then it rises like it doubles or if not triples for the
yeah,
second half of the night. And so if I shift my meal times from, 8 to 6, my HRV literally triples, like
yeah.
just by timing meals differently. And I think that totally affects quality of sleep and is a reflection of that quality of sleep as well.
Well, even things like a couple nights ago, just lots of deep sleep after a pretty intense workout. Um, Seeing the glucose levels actually rise through those deep sleep periods, which is generally speaking when you're supposed to do a lot of sort of the hormone release for body repair and the rest. So just these sort of like subtle responses has been quite interesting. Or if I have a really vivid dream, you can see the cortisol response, like the heart rate definitely races up, but also the sugars are racing up in response. Like the realism of it is, even though you're notionally asleep, it's fascinating. Yeah. I won't do this forever, but I think it's been a fun rabbit hole to really understand more how different external factors are affecting the body. And as one gets a little bit older, I find myself a lot more sensitive to things. And so understand what those triggers are and how to manage them has been helpful.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, we're not health experts, but I guess we are analysts. So
yeah, we got to dig into it. There's a few things to dig into.
Yeah. I mean, speaking about analysts, and maybe more on topic in our area of expertise around the weather and, energy demand and parallels to previous times when weather has or temperatures have plunged pretty dramatically and polar vortexes have shifted south. And it's kind of what we're about to see, on the weekend where, looking at the North American temperature map out there, temperatures at least, 0 degrees Celsius all the way down into basically the edge of the Gulf Coast, which is pretty wild. And, temperatures as low as beyond minus 40 in like northern North Dakota, southern Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, that's cold.
It's really cold. And I think disruptive too. I mean, we've seen lots of folks talking about their concerns about Texas. I was supposed to be in Texas, fly to Texas on Sunday and cancel that trip just because of concerns around flight delays, ice, etc. You don't know what disruption is likely to come, and I don't want to get stuck halfway on a Sunday.
Yeah, if I was going to Texas, I probably would have totally forgotten and shown up with like a T-shirt, like I always do, and been like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah, like Austin on Monday was supposed to be, I think, 0 or lows of -5 or something like that Celsius.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be warmer here essentially.
Yeah.
Which is wild, but I guess there's some implications for that, and the grid and parallels to say Uri, where there's a huge outage at least, and part of that due to freezing infrastructure and lack of the ability to service the grid. But there are differences now for sure.
Definitely, and there's a few things worth I think highlighting. Top line, just peak demand is meant to be at a record level, I think north of 82 gigawatts, which for winter in Texas is a couple gigawatts at least higher than I think the highest recorded hour. So
yeah, I think it hit 80 gigs in February last year.
Yeah,
it was the previous peak,
and I think the year before that was 78. So like that constant ramp up just with Texas load growth, which we've seen overall, is obviously showing up, and you throw in weather, you get those sort of extreme events. So that's one big difference. Second one I think we were talking about was just the composition of the grid and how much more battery storage now sits in that generation capacity, or I guess in the resource stack today. So that certainly should make it a lot more resilient. We'll see how those batteries perform through the cold snap, but it's a huge shift in composition versus just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean that battery wedge, it didn't even exist, and now it's like, looking at a EIA sort of daily capacity forecast, and it's like, or not forecast, but chart shows maybe 5 gigs of batteries at peak.
But I think capacity is closer to 12, maybe more.
Yeah. So I mean, it's there, but would it work, long term? Harder to say.
So that's a huge shift. But the big, in a lot of ways, like the grid looks more resilient than it was a couple of years ago. But there's lots of things that could throw that off. You were talking earlier just about the cold snap and potential freeze offs for gas, especially out of the Permian, and how that affects thermal resources.
Yeah.
That being a good example. I think the other one is just the prospect of ice, and that certainly is what deferred my travel, is that there's likely going to be ice accumulation. My understanding is a lot of the older infrastructure is designed up to maybe an inch of ice accumulation before you have concerns about structural failure. And so, I mean, just because there's enough power resources, the infrastructure has to hold up, of course, as well.
Yeah. if you get an inch of ice accumulation, I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty dramatic.
it's a lot, but I think the forecast is calling for a quarter inch to half inch in areas.
Wow.
But with weather and moisture, that can all localize. You could see that go very different, and who knows? I mean,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
a lot
yeah,
of
you get
weight. If you
locally an
imagine
inch.
an inch of ice on something,
Yeah, that's a lot of weight. I mean, depending on how big the
and
structure is.
cables, and yeah,
Yeah. Well, let's hope the grid is resilient and nothing happens, and everybody
yeah,
down
and
in
everyone's safe.
Texas is safe, and yeah,
It's an interesting
we'll
event
do
from a
best.
distance, and
Yes.
for those going through it, it's a little bit different point of interest for them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, yeah. Hopefully it goes well. I mean, heating up the conversation, maybe.
Let me guess where we're gonna go. It's gonna
Go back to
be
my
geothermal.
favorite topic here, geothermal. I think we've got to mention it just because of how much has been raised in the last 2 months for some of these geothermal startups, and it's close to 700 million.
Yeah,
I mean, the majority of that's gone to Fervo. Fervo's raised close to $1 billion now, but the other two players in there, which is interesting to see because they're very different geothermal technologies, is Sage Geosystems and Zanskar. Um, Fervo's trying their, stimulating the reservoir to create this geothermal reservoir by intersecting fractures. Well,
yeah.
Sage is trying to do a geothermal geopressured system where they inject water into a wellbore, pressurize the system, wait for that sort of system to heat up, and then reproduce that water once it's heated up and pressure is increased in that sense, so that potentially you get more
Like
energy
a
out of the
upper puff
system.
style of thermal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's a good analog for it. But hopefully get more energy out of the system than you put in. So looking at like different forms of long-term energy storage. Speaking of batteries, this is something that could potentially store energy for a much longer period of time, or I'd say distribute energy for a much longer period of time as well. And then Zanskar is interesting because it's conventional geothermal, but they're using AI and machine learning techniques to find those conventional resources. So, looking at more of a proven geothermal technology, but they're solving the challenge of exploration that's been essentially the problem for geothermal companies historically. So it's cool to see those Sage raised, I think, 92 million, and Zanskar like 117. Might have get those numbers backwards. Either way, both close to 100 million, which is cool to see. And then
the form of financing shifted too for some of these, is it not?
yeah. So I mean, we've seen financing raised from like maybe 150 million in 2020 to over 700 million in 2025. But yeah, like you mentioned, we've gone from primarily equity financing up until pretty much last year, where we're actually starting to see more debt financing of these projects, which is really cool to see. I think speaks to a meaningful shift in essentially the viability of these projects, or the perceived viability of these projects. And I think these are getting more bankable, essentially with these long-term PPAs, right? You have some guarantee, at least, maybe not a guarantee, but at least you've got something to back your project.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. Seeing it shift to being able to get debt financing on the other side of it.
Yeah,
the year of geothermal, I think you called that for a while now, and you've seen the land sales ramp up, right? You've seen the technological progress. Now we're seeing the financings, and not just one or two headline companies, but a broader diversity of it. And then the maturity of the financing flavors seems to be evolving as well. So all these things are lining up. Just waiting for those nuclear guys to get going off their start line. I know there's a few things happening there as well, but just I've been impressed with geothermal as a broad industry. The pace of change and pace of progress that has been traversed over the last year or two.
Yeah, no, it's been cool to see, and I think there's a few more things to solve to improve that. I mean, one of them is the ability to permit these projects or these wells, make that more akin to oil and gas, which is in the works. There's some bills, passing through that could improve that. and then the other is on sort of the way taxing of, say, some of these exploration wells work, which makes it more attractive to invest in, with, again, making it comparable to oil and gas.
Yeah. Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
maybe I'll plug, a couple of weeks from now, we're going to be in New York talking to series of investors. It's for the Energy Edge conference. So there's still, I think, a few spots for registration for select folks. But it'll be a good example of trying to look at how capital's flowing into energy, both oil and gas, power, sort of across the space. So looking forward to that event. If people are interested, I'll post the link in the comments here as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's going to be a great event.
Yeah, it should be really awesome, actually.
Totally.
All right, man.
Well, yeah.
Should we call it there?
Cut it here. As always, great chatting with you. Everybody in the South, stay warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay warm, stay safe, and wishing everyone the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Cheers.
Yeah.